What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another car review. This is of course the 2020 Honda CR-V Hybrid. Huge thanks to Honda for bringing me out here to Tucson, Arizona to review the all-new CR-V Hybrid for you guys today. So about the new hybrid version of the CR-V, well, it's a very nice look. So obviously it builds on the existing CR-V, which was already a very good small crossover. And so now we have the addition of standard LED headlamps there, which is great. And you have a unique front bumper here for the hybrid version of the CR-V. For EX and up trims, you get those 5 LEDs in the lower air dam there. And so that is a unique thing for the hybrids. Again, EX and up, the LX doesn't get those. But you also have a slightly refreshed look here for 2020 for all CR-V hybrids with a slightly more aggressive front bumper there, but the hybrid badges and those LEDs are the way you can tell the hybrid version apart from the others from the front end here. It's also looking really nice here in this red color. You also have these 19-inch wheels that look good, and going out towards the back there you can see more hybrid badges, and you also have a unique rear bumper here for the hybrid where they have hidden the exhaust tips there, and so you have little finishers there instead, and so that is something that all the hybrid versions get that is unique. There's also a restyled rear bumper for the standard 2020 CR-Vs as well, but unique here for the hybrid with the way it has that exhaust hidden there. And I really love that they have still retained the vertical CR-V tail lamps that have been a signature styling trait ever since the original. And so overall, I still think it's a very attractive and a very nicely proportioned and sized vehicle. And now with huge improvements in city and combined fuel economy here, getting up to 40 mpg in the city here, you also have some very good fuel economy to go along with these good looks. All right, so for the interior here of the CR-V Hybrid, well, it's a very nice place to be. Very similar to most other CR-Vs. There are a few enhancements here for 2020 and some unique things for the hybrid version. But first off, sitting down in these seats, you have these really nice leather trimmed seats, and I love the bolstering on them. It's actually really good torso support, good thigh support, and I like the kind of ribbing you have here on the seats. It actually really looks good, and I like the stitching and everything. Just a little nicer than what I was expecting, honestly. They're also perforated here, and they're heated. There's no cooling here, even on this top touring trim, but nice to have the heat at least. Moving on to the steering wheel, though, it's a very nice wheel. Honda does such great steering wheels. Has a perfect 9/3 grip, nice little 10 and 2 notches. It's nicely leather wrapped here in the touring trim as well, and it has the same kind of button arrangement you see in the Civic as well, and the CR-V's had a similar thing for many years now, and it all works pretty well. It's a little funky and different from what you see with some other companies, but still all makes sense once you get used to it. There's also a heated steering wheel here in the touring trim as well, which is great. You also have these paddle shifters here on the back of the wheel, but they don't actually do any shifting. They're deceleration selectors, and so basically what that means is there's 3 different levels of regen braking, and so whenever you're coasting, you can play with the paddles here to increase the braking that's done and the recharging that's being done, and so that's very cool. You can kind of maximize your coasting and not really use the brakes much if you want to just crank up the regen instead. And so that's a very fun thing to play with if you're an enthusiast. If you don't want to mess with it, you can just never touch them, and the car will do its own regeneration whenever you hit the brake pedal or are coasting, things like that. And but yeah, a nice thing that they've offered here to the enthusiast. Next are the gauges here in the hybrid version of the CR-V, which are unique and have this digital arrangement that's unique to the hybrid version here. And so one unique thing you see is a battery gauge there on the left-hand side, which is great that they have that so plainly displayed, just in the similar fashion to the gas gauge on the right-hand side. In the middle, it's a nice large cluster, very similar to what you see in like a Pilot or something like that, and it's very clear and simple. There is no traditional tach anywhere, even in sport mode, but what you will see is this power gauge, and it is reminiscent of the S2000 gauges of old, and so that is a nice little nod. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but that's what it reminds me of. I also like the digital speed readouts, nice and big, and all your basic stuff it will display whenever it's EV mode on with that EV light. It's kind of good the way that it keeps you updated without confusing you. If you want more information, you see these menus here and you can scroll through those, and so that'll show you your basic stuff like audio, fuel economy, even like your compass, and a few other little parameters like all-wheel drive torque split, but then it will also show you a power meter showing you what's going on as far as where your power is coming from, whether it's the battery, the engine, both, whatever. And so nice that they have it if you want it. If you don't, again, you can just focus on the spectacular fuel economy you're getting here in the CR-V Hybrid instead. Coming over to the center of the dashboard here, right up top you have Honda's 7-inch Honda Link system, and it does have a volume knob now, which is a nice improvement. And otherwise, you know, it's a little small. You have this big black bezel that blends in nicely to make it look bigger than it actually is. And you have these capacitive touch buttons here on the side still. Would have been nice to see them go to hard buttons like they have on some other Hondas, like the Accord. Also would have been nice to get an upgrade here with the refreshed CR-V to actually have the same head unit as what's in the Accord and the Pilot, which is a fantastic system. This system is still a little underwhelming, unfortunately, here. So as you can see, like loading up the audio segment of the screen actually has still a few seconds delay, which is kind of crazy here in the year 2020 to still be waiting for your screen to transition to whatever you've selected. Aside from that, though, it does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto on all except the base trim. I think EX and Up get the smartphone integration, which is a good feature to have. And I mean, it works okay otherwise. It's just Honda has a better infotainment system. I wish they would just put it in everything. I'm not sure what the holdup is why, you know, we are still running the older system here, but it still works okay. At least it has the smartphone connection. That's, you know, the main thing in my opinion, and everything else, you know, works reasonably well still. Right beneath that, you have your climate control knobs. It's all reflected in the screen there, though, so you don't have an actual readout here, but that's okay. Just a few buttons and keeps it nice and simple. Another unique thing here for the hybrid is the gear selector here. So usually you would have a normal traditional shifter in other CR-Vs, even for 2020 here, but the hybrid version, you get the buttons here instead. And so this is similar to what you see on like the Pilot and some other vehicles, and nicely cleans this area up, gives you a little more space. But you know, a nice little change there for the hybrid version. You also have an additional drive mode here of the EV mode, of course, and so it can do up to a mile of EV driving, but you know, it's not the strongest EV motor, so leaving the vehicle to do its own thing is usually the best way to go. But you can put it into sport mode as well if you want a little more oomph. Coming beneath that, though, you have two USB jacks now, which they previously were in the center console here. They've pulled them out in the open here, which I appreciate. That way you don't have to dig into the console in order to get to them. But you do have this wireless charging pad here in the higher trims, and that's good. But if you have a USB plug right here, it's charging. So having the wireless charging pad is a little redundant, but still, you know, nice that they have the two USB jacks up front here. You also have two cup holders, and then they did redo this whole center console area. You have three different modes for it. So as you can see, this is the first one where you have a little tray here, and you know, has a little tray in the back. But if you don't want it, you can slide this back and consolidate it, and then you still have that one section that's available, and then you have this very deep portion here with a power outlet. And I mean, Honda does some of the best packaging as far as storage spaces. All their vehicles are usually much better than the competition as far as storage bins, and I think this also is really best in class in its segment. And so just tons of space there. But even if you want more space, you can also flip this up, and then it's wide open, this huge bin. You could fit a small purse or something like that in there if you'd like. There's also a power outlet down there, and so good to have that. And so yeah, I really love the versatility of this. And also on top you have the center armrest, which is really soft and plush. Feels great to rest your elbow on. And you lift that up and you just have a better view of everything in here. No additional pockets up in this upper part, but that's totally okay, because again, you have no shortage of storage space here in the CR-V. There's also a large pocket in the door here with about kind of like two bottle holders here. Just a really large amount of space there. One other little thing I do want to complain about, though, in the front seat here, though, is that you have hard plastic by your knee area here. And they even have this like bump out where it looks like it was going to be padded and then they decided against it or something. I'm not sure what that is, because it's still rock hard plastic, not great for resting your knee on longer trips or anything. But at least with my sitting position, the way I'm sitting, I'm not actually even able to rest my knee on this. So you might not come in contact with this if you're on the shorter side. If you're taller, I'm 5'9". If you're taller than me, then maybe you will still have an issue there. But it would have been nice if that was padded. But most of the competition doesn't pad this area either. I think only Mazda does in the CX-5. But it would have been a nice touch, at least here for the top touring trim. Backseat space in the CR-V Hybrid is fantastic. So there's many perks to it. First off, Honda says this is the most interior space in any vehicle in this class, and also the best rear seat legroom in its class. And you can certainly see, I mean, I'm 5'9" again. With the front seat in my driving position, I have easily, I don't know, 5 inches of legroom to spare there. I mean, it is very spacious, plenty of headroom as well. So I mean, you can fit some very tall people in the back of this vehicle and they shouldn't complain one bit. You also have a flat floor there going across, so you can even have someone in that middle seat and have them be you know, pretty comfortable as well. There's also air vents when you look forward, as well as 2 more USB jacks there to keep everyone's stuff powered up in the back as well. There's also a fold down center armrest with 2 cup holders built into it, and that's also a very plush armrest. And there's also bottle holders in those doors as well, so really good amount of space there. Cargo space in the back of the CR-V is also very good here. So for the hybrid version, there isn't anything beneath the floor there aside from your spare tire stuff, but it is still, they actually have the lowest load floor of any rear cargo area in this segment, so that is a nice touch, so you don't have to lift things over as high to get them into that cargo area. The cargo area is also pretty big and you know, a good amount of space. It's competitive with everything in the class, but it is not best in class, so I think that's where they compromised a little bit. You know, I think Toyota gives you a little bit more space in the RAV4 in the cargo area, but less space in the back seat. With Honda, they prioritize the passengers instead, so you have more interior space and just a little bit less cargo space, but still should be totally sufficient for most people back there. And it is also, here in the touring trim, a power tailgate that goes up and down with a push of a button. All right, so starting to go for a drive. The CR-V Hybrid has the typical Honda key, which I really love. It's a nice small key, has a nice weight to it, has a good high quality feel to it, so it doesn't feel cheap or anything. One of the best keys in this class of vehicle, honestly. I love it. I love that it doesn't take up too much space in your pocket. But of course, keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the power button since this is the hybrid. And this time it kicked on the engine, but if you have sufficient battery, then oftentimes it will not kick on the engine and you will just start off. And so it's a very seamless and very quiet experience. And whenever you're actually driving at low speeds, under 20 miles per hour, it'll also make a pedestrian warning sound because it is so silent. And so that helps warn people. And it's very futuristic and very cool sound. All right, so setting off in the CR-V Hybrid. So I'm already doing about 50 miles per hour here, just kind of cruising on a not quite highway, but a higher speed road. And the thing that really jumps out to me about the CR-V Hybrid is just how refined it is. That really stood out to me, especially compared to like RAV4 and stuff like that, which definitely has more road noise, a little more wind noise. This is just so much quieter, and that's something that applies to all CR-Vs in general. But the hybrid here, especially, like even whenever the engine kicks on, it's very, very quiet. Like that was the engine, like that's me flooring it, and it takes a while for it to ramp up, but it really goes in EV mode a lot of the time, and so, you know, it's either in EV mode or it's at very low RPMs for the engine, and so it's very quiet and very, very serene, and I'm impressed with how much it does rely on EV mode as well, and it can, it has a decent amount of power. Obviously, if you go beyond, I'd say maybe half throttle or quarter throttle, is whenever it has to have the gas engine kick in. And also at higher speeds, the gas engine does come on, so the EV has some limitations to it, but it's actually doing a lot of EV mode. And in the first 16 miles here that we've driven, my average fuel economy is already 46 mpg, and it was mostly level surface street kind of driving in traffic and stop and go stuff. And so I'm really impressed just in my little short experience so far. Other things to note here about the CR-Vs is that they have excellent visibility. They have a pretty thin A-pillar here, although you do have a speaker here at the base of the A-pillar, but it doesn't really get in your way too much because you have a nice high seating position. View out of the sides is great. This one also has blind spot monitoring. Here we're in a top touring trim, and then view out of the back is also very great in typical SUV fashion. But I put it up into the sport mode here, and I'm going to see about an acceleration, see how it does. Here we go. Kicks the gas engine on right away. It just basically takes that thing straight to redline, because this is a very unique setup for the powertrain. So it has a 2-liter naturally aspirated Atkinson cycle engine, and that alone does about 146 horsepower, but then what you're really feeling most of the time is going to be the electric motor generator, because there's an eCVT is how Honda has branded this, but there really is no transmission. It's mostly just the engine driving through the electric motors, and then those are what kind of multiply the torque and stuff to give you different types of acceleration. And so, you know, in most driving, it's mostly just going to be the gas engine generating electricity that then propels the vehicle forward. And the electric motor is the punchier of the two. So you actually have 181 horsepower from the electric motor and 232 pound-feet of torque. And so that's what really gives you the motivation that you're feeling whenever you're accelerating. Overall, peak power is 212 horsepower, and then 232 pound-feet of torque is that peak from that electric motor. Other things to note, so we're now back in the normal drive mode, and throttle response is pretty good. So there's less of a disconnect than what you get with some other CVTs, which still like to freewheel a little bit. And since again, this isn't really a CVT in the traditional sense, It's pretty responsive. It gives you a similar experience to an EV as far as the electric response, even whenever you're just in the normal hybrid mode. It's pretty responsive, but it does have a split second of ramping up before you start getting the motivation you're looking for. Brakes also actually feel very normal, even though you have regenerative braking going on, of course, recapturing that electricity for you. You actually don't feel the brake being weird with its resistance or anything. It's very predictable and feels very natural and good. And we'll do a rolling acceleration here in sport mode. And you get a little bit of a pushback into your seat, and then it kind of just sends that engine to redline. And I did talk to some of the engineers, and they did say that once that engine goes to redline, it starts making that peak 212 horsepower. So it is, going to be accessible at many different speeds. Of course, it depends on the conditions and how much charge there is in the battery, as far as how everything can work together and when you'll actually get that peak power output. But that peak torque of 232 pound-feet is, again, what you're going to feel most of the time. And it does feel a good bit punchier. And we actually did a quick little drive loop in the RAV4 Hybrid as well. And there's lots of differences between the two as far as refinement. I mean, this is so much quieter, way less road noise here in the CR-V. But I also noticed that the electric motor in this is a little bit more powerful and way more punchy, and you can feel that immediacy in the electric motor that you don't get in the RAV4 Hybrid when you put your foot down in that. And so I was really impressed with the way this compares. It really drives so much nicer in that regard. Another thing we can try is these regen paddle shifters. Coming up to a stop sign here. See if we can crank it up. So it doesn't do a huge difference. We'll try it again once we get up to speed here in a minute. There's that engine again. So yeah, I mean, it's mostly whenever you're coasting. So now, I'm in the max regen mode, and it still isn't like a Tesla where it's going to slow you down a ton with regen, or any other actual battery electric vehicle. It is milder with its regen, even in its most aggressive setting. And then as you go down, then it really just coasts, basically. It just gets a little bit of regen there in its lightest mode. So cool nonetheless, but it doesn't do a huge difference like it does in some full EVs, like the Kia Niro EV. That has paddle shifters to change the regen as well, and that is really aggressive. Like, you can really slow the car down a lot with the paddles. This, not so much. But it is nice to give you that customization. So yes, chances are, if you're interested in a CR-V hybrid, you're not worried about straight line performance, things like that. You're going to be worried about fuel economy. That's the big thing. This is a massive improvement over the standard CR-V. So the hybrid version here gets 40 miles per gallon in the city. It does 35 on the highway and 38 combined. And so on the highway, that's only a 2 mpg improvement, but the city rating is 13 mpg better than the standard CR-V in the city. So that is really going to be the huge improvement. If you do lots of stop and go driving, you'll see your fuel economy just skyrocket in these things. It's very, very impressive. And the combined number is actually 9 mpg higher as well. So even in mixed driving, if you're doing a lot of highway stuff, you should still get a very solid amount of fuel economy there on the highway as well. Pricing for the CR-V Hybrid is also very strong. So for the base LX Hybrid, it starts at $28,870, including destination. But you have to remember that it comes standard with all-wheel drive, which is an option on other CR-Vs. So whenever you consider an all-wheel drive version of the standard CR-V LX, it's only a $1,200 difference between the two. So a very small price premium to pay for the hybrid there. But this one that I'm driving here, the Touring trim, as tested, is $37,070, including destination. But even at that fully loaded price, it still is about $2,000 cheaper than a comparably equipped RAV4 Hybrid Limited with the advanced technology package, which gives you all the same equipment you get here in the CR-V. But even at that price, the RAV4 still doesn't have real leather seats, and you're still paying $2,000 more for the RAV4. It also has 30 less pound-feet of torque, which adds that slower feeling compared to the CR-V Hybrid that I was talking about earlier. The RAV4 does get slightly better fuel economy, but it's only 1 mpg better in the city, 2 better combined, and 3 better on the highway. The reason why the CR-V Hybrid does less highway mpg is because it uses a mechanical all-wheel drive system similar to the non-hybrid CR-V. So this means that you have a much more natural and secure grip from the all-wheel drive system, and this was illustrated to us very well on a deep sand figure 8 course where we drove the CR-V Hybrid and the RAV4 Hybrid back to back, and the difference was really noticeable. The RAV4 would try and use ABS and brake-based stability control to try and keep the car in line, but the rear electric motor in that RAV4 was much more prone to wheel spin and wanted to fishtail a lot more. In comparison, the CR-V Hybrid was much more secure and less dramatic, sticking to its course and providing the grip with less wheel spin and not needing to use the brakes and the stability system to help keep it in line. So although you're slightly behind in EPA ratings, the more planted feel of the CR-V Hybrid gives a more safe and precise feeling, in my opinion. And like I mentioned, in the real world, we were seeing well beyond the 40 mpg these are rated at. I saw 43 in my time of driving. My drive partner got 46 mpg in his time with the CR-V, and some journalists managed to get even close to 50 mpg. So there's no doubt the CR-V Hybrid gets amazing fuel economy even with its real-time all-wheel drive system.
It's really a no-brainer. I mean, yes, you have to pay a little bit more for the hybrid, but it's not a huge jump. And if you value fuel economy, I mean, you actually get more power here technically in the hybrid version than you do in the gas one as well. And so it's basically a no-lose situation. I mean, yes, it's a little less natural. There's no actual shifting going on like you get with the normal version of the CR-V. But other than that, I mean, like I said, it drives like an EV a lot of the time. So honestly, I don't miss the shifting. It doesn't have a rubber bandy feel. It doesn't veer around with the engine RPM as much as the RAV4 does. So I really don't mind the fact that there is no traditional transmission here in this. I think it's great. And again, you're going into EV mode a lot, and it seems like it goes into EV mode more often than the RAV4 as well. So we don't have a ton of windy roads here on the drive route in Tucson, but we do have a couple of corners here, very gentle corners, but just to sample the handling here of the CR-V Hybrid. I will have a standard CR-V for a full week, so I'll be able to take it on my own back roads and assess the handling of that one. But this one, you know, the battery's on the floor, so you might have a little bit of you know, lower center of gravity, and in addition, you're running 235 wide tires on these 19-inch wheels. They're all season tires, of course, but it gives you a very flat and sure-footed handling. I think it's a little bit more of a car-like ride than what you get with the RAV4 as well. So, you know, it feels very confident. Obviously, you're not going to be, you know, doing autocross or storming down a back road in this vehicle, so not a huge deal, but it does just ride very, very nice, and it's very well controlled whenever you pitch it into a corner, and when you're swerving, you're doing emergency maneuvers and stuff. It is very buttoned down, and I also like that the steering weight is a little bit weightier than what you get in the RAV4. And so in sport mode, you know, it doesn't seem to get really any stiffer. It might get a little bit stiffer, but really it's just a good weight in the normal mode here, and so that also adds to the sporty handling feel here of the CR-V. And I mean, many other journalists have also praised its driving dynamics. It's, you know, really a good handling vehicle, but again, I will have to test that on my own roads to make a final assessment if it's actually better than the CX-5, which is my favorite handling compact crossover. But in the meantime, it still handles very good, and again, for a family hauler, it's going to be plenty good enough for anything you want to throw at it. But yeah, so that's about all my thoughts here in the CR-V Hybrid. I'm very impressed with it though. Like I said, the refinement is really a good step up from RAV4 in my opinion for their hybrid version, and I think it looks great. It's very competitively priced. You get competitive fuel economy. It's a very, very compelling option here, and so my only thing is I just hope that they eventually do a plug-in hybrid competitor to the RAV4 Prime, you know, that's going to be a little bit faster or something. That would be fun, because obviously as an enthusiast, this is adequate power, but I would obviously like more, and so that would be fun if they, you know, do a sportier version of a plug-in hybrid down the road sometime. We know that, you know, more hybridized vehicles are coming from Honda and from basically everyone, so hopefully you know, they do have a competitor to the RAV4 Prime someday. But in the meantime, this is a really great competitor to the standard hybrid RAV4, and just drives very, very nice. I'm very impressed. So anyway, huge thanks to Honda once again for providing me with this opportunity. Let me know your thoughts on the CR-V Hybrid in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.